Call to order the regular meeting of the East Point Community Schools Board of Education, November 25th, 2024 at 6:30. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grunberg.
Here.
Dr. Early.
Here.
Mr. Williams here. Mrs. Rayford.
Here.
Mrs. Richardson.
Present.
And Mr. Grunberg.
Here. If we could all please stand for the pledge. Dan Zander will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Please call the roll or vote.
Dr. Early.
Yes.
Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Mr. Grunberg.
Yes.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Rayford.
No.
And Mrs. Richardson.
Yes.
Next, we have consent agenda. Is there a motion for consent agenda?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Comments, questions? Please call the vote.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Grunberg.
Yes.
Mr. Grunberg.
Yes.
Dr. Early.
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford.
No.
And Mrs. Richardson.
Approve and support.
Next, we have the superintendent's report. Superintendent Gibson.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen joining us in the board chamber, as well as those joining online. This is your superintendent's report for November 25th. We continue on our campaign for excellence in our programs and services that we are offering. And most recently, East Point Community Schools had an opportunity to have our 18-month benchmark check-in as part of being a partnership district. East Point was identified a partnership district in 2022. We had 2 schools that were part of that initial identification. That was the first full year after the pandemic and the first year that the accountability metrics in the state of Michigan came back online. So the district entered into a partnership with MDE. We established 3 district level process goals and 6 goals for East Point High School, 5 goals for Pleasant View Elementary School. We are pleased to report that in concurrence with the MDE, we have met all of our partnership goals. So our first goal was a performance management tool with multiple measures of data. The MDE, the Macomb Intermediate School District, and the district all had to say, yes, we believe that we've met that goal for the status of MET to be garnered to the district. So we've met our first process goal. Our second process goal was about our strategic plan implementation. What East Point Community Schools has done is we have one strategic plan that embodies all of the work of the organization, and then we've chunked out some of that work. So we had last year action teams. This year we'll have some work groups and be involving our staff in some of the decisions there. Our third process goal was to develop a more comprehensive strategy implementation guide for school turnaround teams. So there's different names: school improvement team. We've called them the BTNs, the building turnaround team. Also in our collaborative work with UVA, our principals have all developed 90-day action plans for first semester. And they will be redefining a second semester action plan as well. So we were deemed met in our third process goal. East Point High School had multiple benchmarks for the 18-month interim targets. Our first benchmark was to get a 1% growth in ELA, and that target was 8.91%, and our ELA of full academic year students was 19.75. So the MDE used language that said we crushed it. Here in mathematics, the target was 2.23%, again, a 1% growth. East Point's at a 3.7. Our attendance goal was 1% growth in 23-24, and the target was 73.5. The attendance rates are at 78.2. 86.79. Graduation rates, the 2022 graduation rate was 69%, almost 70, and we saw that plummet after the pandemic. But now, as of 2024, our four-year graduation rate, which was supposed to increase by 3%, has increased to 86.73. So that goal has been met as well. Our 18-month target measure for NWEA, which is our local assessment, our projected growth was to have a 2% growth in one academic school year. Our goal was 33.79, and we have met that and exceeded it with 45.25%. The school index is a combination of certification, performance on state assessments, growth, the percentage of students that you test, access to media, paraprofessional or media certified librarians. So there's graduation rates. The school index was released while we were in the partnership meeting, and then there's a few numbers to look at here. So the overall index in 2022 was a 20.85, which is one of the reasons that we were identified. Our index as of this year's ratings that were just released is at a 34.45, which is a significant amount of growth. I think this other number that we are proud of is the school quality and student success index was at 21.81. It is now at 47.7. Pleasant View Elementary 18-month targets. I know that Principal Trice is a proud principal and also has these in her presentation this evening, so I will let her talk more about those. But here you can see full academic year on state assessments, only supposed to get to 10.91%, 18.22%. Same with the mathematics, 3.7. Our target was 3.8, and we're sitting at 8.1. Next, Pleasant View's attendance rates are currently at 2024 year end. We're at 87.7. The goal again was 83 to have a 1% increase. And you can see that it is greater than a 4% increase. The next target growth for Pleasant View was in mathematics. And this is NWEA data, which the district identified as our local assessment data in our partnership agreement. It was at 33, it is currently at 40, and the goal was 33.6. The same for reading. The goal was 23%, and we're at 42.45, also met. The school index went from a 23.7 to a 41.84. Again, you can see here the school quality rating index improved from 36 to 62. So we are pretty proud to not only have met our 18-month benchmark, but we have exceeded our 36-month benchmark. We are beyond where you're supposed to be released from being a partnership district. We do have some work to do. We would be remiss if we didn't say that we continue to have growth that our children can make. And in mathematics in particular, there are continued opportunities to increase. The state did inform the district that they may not even have to conduct a 36-month benchmark because our data now has exceeded where we were supposed to be. So there's not enough cheering or happiness in the room here, but we are pretty proud of the academic successes. So we can all silently cheer. Oh, thank you there, Ms. Castello in the crowd. And so what are those conditions that have led to those double-digit gains? The board taking action on a strategic plan and a direction, a focus on the big rock of curriculum and instruction, equity and access to materials, and then those building level and district level systems. So one of the pieces that was very big was the school, the district did some resource equity work, looked at all of the curriculum and the content, and determined what courses of action we needed to take. So they used this resource equity diagnostic to facilitate those conversations and to do a full curriculum review. Curriculum implementation has been happening across the district. In fact, one of the feedback that has come is that it's a little too much implementation at one time, because as the board knows, we approved reading and math about 6 months apart. But it is having a significant impact on our children's learning in their classrooms. So here's a few pictures that we highlighted of teachers implementing curriculum. And as the board knows, it was the instructional infrastructure, that process of looking at the data, what was equitably happening across all of our classrooms. And then the district team engaged teachers, because teachers in classrooms should have input into the curriculum and the ease of use of the resource. So committees were put together to look at these resources, and then an adoption was brought forward to the board. There were pilots of the curriculum as well to test and to allow teachers who use the content and curriculum with students. And as this board knows, we had regular updates about how those curriculum pilots were going in all of our schools. And it is because of the action of this board to support that content and curriculum implementation that we are able to see some of the dramatic success. The secondary curriculum was the same process. The curriculum department has a process for vetting and looking at materials, involving teachers in the decision-making process, highlighting materials, and then moving to implementation. And so we are in the implementation phases of these curriculums, working with the vendors to ensure that they are equitably given the training that they need to ensure that children can all have a guaranteed and viable experience with the materials. So that if you are in a third grade classroom at Pleasant View, you would get the same content as a third grade classroom at Bellevue. Grants and partnership impact. Part of our report to the MDE was to celebrate the systems work and the partners that we have. East Point Community Schools has continued our systems level journey by finding a partner in the University of Virginia. And we will continue to work on improving the principal practice, as well as how our central office team supports the principalship. We know having great principals in our schools drives change more rapidly. It's also an opportunity for us to create innovation centers in all of our schools. We have a partnership with our Boys and Girls Club for extended day and extended year. And I know our new athletics and activities director is already working diligently with the Boys and Girls Club to remove some of the barriers of transportation to get to the club in the afternoons. We also work with MSU's Office of Extension. They have been supporting our mentoring program across this district. I think we are in year 5 of our partnership with MSU. We did take a year off during COVID, but they have been a tremendous support to the work here in East Point in developing pre-service teachers, extending, and the curriculum department is built to dine and discuss, bridging veteran staff with new staff and having robust conversations. And to MSU, we are grateful for their partnership. We also work with MCAN and have had an MCAN partnership for probably a decade now. This year we launched Communities in Schools at our East Point High School campus, and currently the task of our liaison assigned from Communities in Schools is really actively looking at attendance. What are those barriers that students face? What can we do to improve that? Last year, this community knows and the board knows we received an almost $1 million grant from Balmer and United Way to put out a summer discovery program. That was 5 weeks of 8 hours a day of summer learning and opportunities. And I'm glad to see Kelly Berg here in the audience this evening. She was absolutely instrumental in implementing that program this summer, and I know is already engaging in starting to plan with Paris McCarthy how we're gonna do that even better than last year. Then we have a partnership, and we are funded by the MDE to grow our own teachers, and we have a relationship with Northern Michigan University. Northern Michigan has been a fantastic partner to us. Again, we have some staff members in the audience that are part of our Grow Your Own program. And Northern Michigan absolutely has been a fantastic partner to East Point Community Schools. And they built out a program to grow from paraprofessional into a teacher. So we're very proud of that partnership. Because we are a partnership district, we do get access to 21H funding. And that has been written for our partnership with UVA to continue our work to train and improve best instructional practices with coaches. We use Pam from the Danielson Group. Dr. Pam Rosa was founding member of Danielson and comes here to East Point mostly because she likes us and likes the work, and specifically holds days for us. Then the final piece to the 21H puzzle was Assistant Superintendent Stephanie Fleming, Lisa Petrella, and our principals have planned out guaranteed field experiences for transition grades to promote enhanced learning and to give our children diverse opportunities, not just in school, but outside of the walls of the school. What are those next steps, you might be asking, after crushing our 18-month benchmark review? Well, it's more work, because that's what we do here in East Point. We've got to continue to refine our performance management tool and that instrument and the work of performance management as it lives out in our schools. The curriculum department today was meeting one-on-one with principals, going over building data. We are going to continue on the strategic plan mission and vision and those 5 goal areas. This year we'll be implementing some work groups for some specific items that were identified last year to work on. Our school improvement teams or building turnaround teams will continue to work with their principals and refine those 90-day plans. We will continue to monitor the implementation of our curriculum. That is our big rock for the year. And then we will continue our partnership with communities and schools. A huge part of our work is focused on the University of Virginia Partnership for Leaders in Education. It is a research and evidence-based practice of coaching and support. A RAND study has recognized PLE as one of the K-12 leadership development providers with a Tier 2 impact. They have experienced results across 32 states and almost 200 school systems. The focus in our UVA work is the systems work. It's creating those systems for change inside of our organization, in our leadership, and how we do accountability, as well as talent management and instructional infrastructure. This is similar work to what the district began in 2014, 2015, when Dr. Ryan McLeod worked with the state of Michigan and launched the MIXL Blueprint. This is why we intentionally chose UVA, is because the data and the research in systems change in school districts is the same great body of research. Then those collective leadership capabilities is how do we reimagine the system? How do we expand and build stronger networks? And then how do we capture emergent learning and take those possibilities forward? So that is part of the 18-month benchmark update. Now we're gonna go on to some gratitude opportunities. So big thank you. We've got 3 board members that run 3 nonprofits in town, and they help to facilitate getting our families things that they need. So today we were talking turkey, and there were 200 grocery gift cards donated from the Hillside Foundation. A big thank you to our alumni that started that foundation. 10 Thanksgiving meals from Love Life Family Christian Center were donated, and 20 turkeys from the office of Representative John James. And a huge thank you to our board members, Secretary Williams, Vice President Early, helped to facilitate this with Donna Fabian Grossman to get these items out to needy families in our community. And thank you to our at-risk social workers in our schools who helped to identify the families that would have the biggest impact from those donations. Last week, East Point Culinary Food Truck Battle occurred with no real food trucks. However, they did a big challenge. There were 2 teams. They divided the second-year culinary students. The 2 teams, if you watch Food Network at all, you would know that this is a pretty popular concept. So each team designed their own menu with pricing. One team had smash burgers, the other team had a Detroit-style pizza. They created cash, like Monopoly money for the food truck battle. And they served all the staff of East Point High School and even sent some cash over to central office so that a few members of our team could go over and experience it. I heard the smash burgers were a huge success, and there were none left by the time the first lunch ended. So thank you to Chef Candace Shoemake and our culinary students for this fantastic battle of the food trucks. Elementary scientists at work. We have mystery science curriculum, and that curriculum is fantastic for hands-on science exploration. This past week, I got a chance to be in Miss Castello's classroom to see how she facilitated a great dialogue and discourse with her children at Pleasant View. And then across the street, on the other side at Bellevue, the children were examining leaves and predicting and doing hands-on science exploration. So thank you so much to our teachers and to that great mystery science curriculum for those opportunities. The ECSE students from the ELC learned more about their community, and they took a field trip stopping at all the important places, the fire department, the library, and then the East Detroit Bakery. So the children got to learn more about their community, and I thank you so much to the fire department, the library, and the bakery for hosting all of our children. There will be a unified 612 vision planning discussion on November 27th. Invitations have gone out to community members and to staff, as well as families and students, to create a long-term plan for how we will live into this 612 unified campus. And this is about program planning so that the building can follow suit after we're very clear about how the portrait of a graduate will be lived out in our community. This was a board member's brainstormed. I like to thank Vice President Dr. Early. So we should have strategic planning that's just focused on how we're going to serve 612 students. So we are bringing Wolpert back, and we'll be facilitating this conversation on Wednesday morning from 9 to noon. We are planning for a team of about 40 to 50. I do have a few spots remaining. If you are a community member and you are interested in having your voice heard about our long-term program and curriculum planning, please call the superintendent's office at 586-533-3023. And Wendy Coleman will assist you to get you registered if you'd like to be part of that. K-5 transition progress. A big thank you to all of our preschool and elementary families who filled out the survey that was emailed last week. That survey is still open and accepting responses. A video was sent out to all of our families regarding the migration back to K-5 schools. The district moved to the K-235 model more than 10 years ago, and we are now returning to a more traditional standard K-5 model based on parent feedback. We have a number of families that have children at multiple schools in our organization, and for a number of years they have asked to make it a one-stop shop for an elementary family. This is about caring more deeply for the quadrants of our community and the families and children inside. We are currently examining enrollment areas. We are looking at the SEMCOG data. We are looking at homeowner versus rental. We are looking at Google Maps and putting pins for where students live, working to define those 4 quadrants of the school district. We will be sharing more about the research and the thinking at our next board meeting on December 9th. This week in athletics, we have our first basketball contest. It is away on Tuesday evening at Hazel Park. The district will be closed Thursday and Friday for the Thanksgiving holiday. But you can find our basketball schedules, our practice schedules are all on our website. Upcoming events, we have a November 27th, the Visioning Conversation, 9 to noon. There is no school from the 27th to the 29th for the Thanksgiving break. And December 23rd through January 3rd will be our holiday break. Next up, I'd like to invite Principal Felicia Trice to share a little bit more about the work happening at Pleasant View Elementary School. Principal Trice.
Okay. Good evening, Superintendent. I was like, is it my turn? I am coming to present to you where Pleasant View is now, where we started from when I first got here, when we were first identified as a CSI school. So we can go to the next slide, where this is one of my favorite pictures we took this year, our hands-on learning experience with our third graders. And they actually had a chance to go inside the earth and see what the continents look like. And it was like a good thing to go in, but I went in with 10 kids, which is always good, versus the first group that went in was 30. And they really learned a lot and it turned on, because a lot of our field trips this year are geared towards social studies. Students really don't like social studies, so we're trying to make it fun for them. And we actually had a chance to get our fifth graders to come in with our third graders and do some pair share learning together, even though it was for third grade. But it was a good opportunity for our fifth graders to come in and work with them as well. Our students on the go includes our field trips, providing real-world experiences for our third and fourth grade students. In those pictures, the students went to the Fort Rouge plant. They also attended the MSU Tollgate Farm, in which they have 6 more visits there around the world in the traveling globe, which is the picture you guys just saw. Our fourth graders did the Belle Isle Nature Trails, and then we also took our students to Blake Farms, in which they got a chance to learn the manufacturing of apple cider, picking their own apples. And it was quite interesting because they weren't tall enough, so they wanted me to get some apples for them. But we were able to take some of our safeties who work with the students as well. Our parent and community engagement this year is where we like to involve our parents in everything we do. This year, we did a book literacy night where 150 families came out. And every student, no matter if they were from Pleasant View, Forest Park, Crescentwood, and we had some students from the middle school, every student left with a book. They didn't just come to get candy. Of course, I was in a room reading, and it was fog in there, and the kids tend to like the fog, and I was over the fog before this program was over. We had our culture and climate parent meeting where we had some of our parents come out, and we wanted to hear their voice. We really need to change some of the things in the building, and we did not want to do it without involving our parents. Our fifth grade parent meeting we just had last week, it was a success. We had Officer Prude come, and he spoke with the parents about behavior and transitioning from fifth grade to the middle school. Our parent Zoom sessions, as you can see, we try to meet all of our parents. We know that not every parent can come into the building. So we conducted, I believe, 4 Zoom sessions so far. Some with mainly our fifth grade parents, because again, we are trying to get them ready to transition into middle school. Then we have our family meet and greet sessions with the Kona truck. You probably could have drove past Pleasant View and saw parents and students sitting on the grass. It was just something out the blue. He showed up and all of the parents came out, and parents who never met each other before, the kids been in the same class, they were able to sit out there and have conversations. Our Operation School Bells is when the community came and like really took over our gym. It was like a little mall in there. And the parents were really excited for that. And one of the comments was they loved that every student in the building received something. So there would be no teasing, nobody, everybody had a bag, and the kids were able to pick out things that they really wanted and what we see them wearing today. Next is our UVA 90-day plan, and as a team, we thought about it and naming it Refocus in Pleasant View, because although we hit our goals, some of these goals that were presented to us, we still have to go to the next level with the students. And what does that look like? So as the team, not just my BTN, but the entire staff, we came up with a mission and a vision. So it's not a Principal Trice 90-day plan. It's a Pleasant View plan in which all of us, we're going to live into. And that picture is one of our newest teachers, Miss Boja. And Miss Boja absolutely personifies what our mission and vision, and she's only been there since August, but she fits right in to everything that we're doing at Pleasant View. In our goals with UVA, I did not want to stray away from what our CSI goals were, so we just kept it to what the ELA and mathematics growth, and our increasing attendance to 95%. And I know sometimes when we look at attendance, we say 80%. 80% is not a lot, because with us currently having 320 students, if we miss 50, that's 80%. But those are 50 students that probably need the most support. And we want to gun for 95% and getting our students in. And one of the ways that we did it last year was parent participation. So we're really focusing on gearing up our parent participation this year. Our PLC alignment, in which now it's more focused. We have grade level, but then we also bring in school level, because there might be something at third grade that can help fourth grade, or something at fifth grade that can help our third grade teachers. So we're doing our PLCs to where it's more geared towards everybody supporting every grade level in the building. Next, our next slide is teamwork. So in order for Pleasant View to meet those goals, as you can see tonight, I have a lot of my parents and my staff here, and our data is public. And when people talk about Pleasant View, they talk publicly about Pleasant View. So I wanted to celebrate my staff publicly and thank them for everything that they have done, from every teacher, paraprofessional, office staff member, our support staff, our janitor, our ever faithful building sub, Mr. McGee, who has been with me for the whole 3 years I've been there. Our newest board member, she could tell you, she knows that it is definitely a teamwork. She had a student in my building. So I want to thank all of you for all that you guys do and have done and continue to do, and believing in the madness that is Principal Trice. And again, just to reiterate, I know Superintendent talked somewhat about our scores, but I focused, when I put this together, on our increased by percentage, because that is a lot to do. And so I want to say a small amount of time, but when you have new staff, we had a lot of new staff, not just my first year, you know, and it's hard when you're coming in as a first-time principal and they're like, why do we need to listen to this little girl? I think I was called little girl the first 3 months I was there. However, again, the staff didn't derail from what we were trying to do. And the biggest thing I loved the best is that every year for the assessment participation, we had 100%, which means even if we could not get those kids there every day, they came for testing, which it says a lot about the teachers, because I put that onus on the teachers to reach out to the parents, get the students in, let's get this data, because those students, 9 out of 10, they will return to Pleasant View, and we needed a starting point with them. Getting to our goals and our parent partnership, recently, this last week, myself, Ms. Berg, and my secretary, Josie, we started our parent attendance contracts, and we're going to start back doing our biweekly check-ins. We've been working closely with Donna Fabian Grossman on looking at this new program that we have and really just narrowing our focus on those. I think I found out today it was 30 students. I talked to the team about this morning. It's 30 students that we really need to look at what's affecting them not being in school. We are having our parent meetings with surveys. And again, if you've ever been to a parent meeting, the parents do not leave empty-handed. I need to hear from them. We need to find out what they're thinking we're doing right and what they're thinking we're doing wrong. And I always make the joke to the staff, we have over 600 parents, and all of them are not happy fancy with Principal Trice, so I want to hear from them parents and get those parents a part of what we're doing. We have our parent activities, a lot of parent activities lined up, and as always, our Attendance Matter program, where we did work last week with the new athletic director, McCarthy. She was over at Pleasant View, and we did a lot of goal setting with Boys and Girls Clubs, and our rewards, I believe we start tomorrow. We start tomorrow with them coming into our building, and they're working with Ms. Bird, and they set up everything. So I'm excited to see those students that actually earned the first reward that we'll do for our attendance focus. And we do have our honors program, in which we're, as a team, we haven't set the date yet. We are going to set it in the next 2 weeks, but we're trying to figure out how we're going to get all of those kids in there, because I believe we're celebrating almost 200 of the 320 students at the building. Continuing our academic progress, again, for our student focus, is just establishing a culture of data-driven students, and not just us as the staff knowing the data, but having our students know it as well. Increase extracurricular activities. So this year we added the dance team, our Lego STEM, and our book club. So those were 3 things. Parents wanted us to really add something for the kids that love to read. So now we have a book club. We do have our attendance action plans that we're starting. And then I talked about this with Dr. Early, our lanyard program that we're starting this year, and each student gets one of these. And inside, it has their goal. Whether it's attendance, academics, some students have 4 because you have a lot of goals. And we make them small because the students, once they can achieve that small goal, then they stretch for that next one. So each one of the students will get one of these. I have my team working on those. And as they hit them, they can change it. They can move the next goal in the front, but they have to carry those goals with them at all times. Our student-led data conversations, where the students are having conversations with their parents. I have a few of my students here, and they go home and they talk about their data, whether it's an iReady score, NWEA, any data that we do within that building they're talking about. And we have an increased homework program at the school now. A lot of parents were asking for it, and we just really sat at the last PLC to look at the amount that's coming back in. And we're getting it to where we take pictures and put it on Dojo. This is the homework. We take parent sample pictures and put it on Dojo, because a lot of parents say, I can't do the homework. You guys sent it home, so we met them where they were, and we take pictures of the examples on the board, and we post them in our Dojo. Our reading parent partnerships is where we're sending reading logs home, as well as our passage-based writing reading. We send it home, and the kids read it at night. And what we found is if they're reading it with their parents at night, they come in the next day and they're ready to write their paragraphs, because the parents are reading about it and they're talking to them about it, which that is a big lift for our parents. Our staff focus is just engaging on grade level lessons where they're engaged. And the staff hear me yelling all the time, it's grade level. Even if we know that we have to differentiate, you start off on grade level. Our SST implementation is up and running, focusing on using curriculum with fidelity, whole group and small group instruction. And the key piece up there is advanced learning for our high achieving students. A lot of times we forget about those students that are high. They become the pencil captain, the computer captain. So we are really stretching ourselves and making just some appointed time for those students to learn, if they're at 6th grade level, learn 6th grade work so that they can continue to grow. Providing real-world experiences in our daily lessons, and again, our passage-based writing is what we're focusing on as a staff. And the next slides just focus on our CSI goals, in which we did have our 18-month review last week, and I believe the guy, I can't think of his name, he said, crushed it like about 4 or 5 times. And he was waiting on some smiles to come in. And in my head, I'm like, goodness, how do we do the next set? You know, and I'm looking at him And Dr. Early was sitting over there elbowing me, and she was smiling, and I was like, I don't want to smile yet. We still have to grow. So we looking at our data, and I know Superintendent went over it. Again, I am a numbers person, so when we look at the increase and where they wanted 1%, and we did 4.3 for our math, and then our reading increased 7.4 on our state assessment. That was a lot in dealing with the fact that we had a lot of attendance concerns at the beginning of the year. So from, I believe, January, Jennifer, we really put some intense plans together to move those kids that we know they show up from January till it's time to test, but we didn't see them the first couple of months. So we really had our SST team really meeting with those students. The next slide looks at our NWEA, where our percentage points was an increase of 6.67 for our math and 19.84 for reading. And that was a lot. And with our M-STEP results, last year was my first year, our first year of not having any students that received a letter from the state. We had a lot of students that needed support, but we did not receive any retention letters, and that is really clap worthy for all of the hard work that our teachers did over at Pleasant View. And in the next slide, attendance is really my thing. It is. I just want to see the kids in the building. We did increase by 5.42%. However, again, I gave us the task of getting to that 95%, because the more students we can have, the more students we reach, and the higher our growth goals go. So on the next slide is we're living into the strategic plan and Pleasant View next steps. Again, student ownership of their data, implementation of the new math and ELA curriculums. We're still focusing on our writing. We have some new testing practices that we're getting ready to roll out when we take our winter assessments. Parent curriculum meetings where we had the parents come in and we talked to them about the curriculum. We gave them some work to do to try to solve it so that they can see what the kids are going through, as well as I warned our fifth grade parents that they will be invited in for breakfast and they have to take the M-STEP test. In their head, they're just thinking they're coming and they're getting all 4 packets for each subject to where they have to sit down, and the students will leave and the students cannot help them take the test. We do have our ability group, and again, that is mainly focusing on our high achieving students and really meeting those students where they are just to grow them. We have our tutoring that we want to bring back, and also our academic incentives. And in those pictures, we have our 5th graders in the library, but if you look at the 2 bottom slides, that's the 4th grade class that I teach math in. And getting to use the manipulatives is one of the things that we really said was our goal this year. And it took a lot of patience for me to have those manipulatives. Everybody that walked past the classroom kept checking on me, but to really use those manipulatives and get the students to factor out. And then Miss Maya Clark's class, I thought this was just genius, where her kids were playing Uno with the multiplication fact cards. I thought that was really genius of her, and the kids were just talking to each other, and they, that's not right, 12 times this is this, and they really were encouraging each other. So kudos to her, and I said to the team this morning that we were going to stretch that across into our lunchrooms and really have our kids doing that, because as you know, multiplication is the biggest thing. If they can multiply, they can do all of the math that we're asking them to do. So on our next slide, we focus about educating the whole child. Of course, we want to push the academics, but what makes them want to come to Pleasant View? What really gets them in there? Our after-school curricular activities promoting academic behavior and attendance success with our activities. All 3 of those are tied to every club. If you are not excelling in those, you cannot be in the clubs. So we have our drama club, our glee club, our Pearl Girls, who did a phenomenal job. Mrs. Clark with them last week with Kindness Week, and they were all walking around just giving everybody treats and personalized cards for every staff member. It was like they took their time and sat down and wrote something for every staff member. And you can see in that picture, last year we were able to purchase instruments. And our band went from 14 kids to over 50. So we had to have 2 different band sessions. Yes. And we did have one of our parents, she, as well, she has somebody in the music industry, and they donated some instruments to us as well. And then you can see our safeties. I'm really proud of our safeties. They take their jobs so serious. We do have the metal badges coming in, because when I was a safety, I had that badge, and the badge meant that you was the top safety. So to keep all of our kids on the same level, Kelly said everybody get a badge. So we're going to give everybody a badge. On the next slide, again, attendance matters. We can have all of these programs. We can put forth all of these scenarios with teaching and pulling out all of the stops with our staff, but we have to push to get the kids into the building. If you drive past Pleasant View, this is all that displays on my board outside. I believe it comes up about 8 times, because I really need the parents to understand how important it is to have the kids there, and not have them there, but on time. Because it's just something about when we see the kids that's tardy, they don't like being tardy, and their faces when they come in, when it's like that walk of shame when you have to come in the classroom after everybody is sitting there. And the 4th graders and our 3rd graders, they are debaters, and they will say, my mom made me late. And so that gives me and Kelly leverage, like, hey, Mom, you know, what's going on? But we really need to get our students into the building. And that picture right there is all 320 other students into the gym. We were trying to test something which we will never test again, but that is all of them in the building. And finally, what's up and coming at Pleasant View? So we do have our Q1 Honors and Attendance Awards ceremony. At that time, we will also recognize some of our parents. We have one dad, he literally walks about 6 or 7 kids to school every morning. We have some dads that's helping with traffic. So we want to celebrate them and let them know we appreciate them. On December 19th, Pleasant View Performing Arts Clubs, that's every club that was up there except for STEM and Lego, we will be presenting Frozen. Over at the high school, Principal Yarch has invited us to come back, and he wants us to partner with some of his clubs, and we are putting on Frozen over at the high school. And then we have our Donuts with Dad, but this year it's a little different. We are introducing our dogs program. One of our board members, he's been in there. We just been missing each other, and he's been fussing at me, and I've been fussing at him. And we finally got our kit today, thanks to Wendy Coleman, who tries to tell me what you need for this, and it actually came. And dogs are dads of great students. And we have so many great dads who come and volunteer every day at Pleasant View. So why not bring them in and do multiplication drills with the kids and have them do some things with the students to get the students excited. Polar Express with the Principal. That is my favorite movie ever. And the kids are really trying to strive, because I'm only taking 75 students. So that is a race to the finish to see who gets to watch this movie with me in their pajamas, and with Miss Berg making popcorn and Miss Stacy and cotton candy and all the stuff the kids make a mess with. So we're doing all of that. Our 3rd and 4th grade parent meeting, that is our next big tackle. We really need to get our 3rd grade parents in. We have some 3rd grade parents that have some amazing ideas, and I believe having them come and not just listen to me. I want them to talk amongst each other so that we can figure out what we need to do to move our kids forward. And last but not least, our PBIS breakfast. We are doing something fabulous for the kids this year. They asked, was our famous elf coming back, and we told them no. To keep it a secret, it's a secret. If you guys are watching, I'm not talking to him. We did tell them that it was a guest person coming, and I said me, and they said you can't be a guest because we see you every day. However, we are planning a really big breakfast for them this year, because I believe we're celebrating almost 100 students that have had perfect attendance since we started, and that is a lot coming in. So that is all things Pleasant View. And again, thank you to my amazing staff and my parents that came out today to support the work that we do at Pleasant View. Oh, I forgot y'all asked me questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going first. First, I want to say that I was there at the, what's the name of the thing?
The 18-month benchmark review of the
Yeah, that,
partnership.
I was there, and I just want to say to our principals that y'all crushed it. It really, y'all did crush it. Like, your staff, your students, your parents, we have to make sure that we tell them that they crushed it. Because doing an 18-month benchmark or a 36-month benchmark in 18 months. Yes, it's, there's no words for it. And so it's everybody own that. Everybody in your building own that. And be proud of yourself. And don't listen to that, well, it could have been better. Y'all did what y'all needed to do for right now. And I'm super proud of everything that y'all been doing. It's wonderful. You have been a great leader. And I laugh and joke with you all the time because I want to see that building continue to grow the way it has been. And I'm only going to be here for a couple of hours because without them, our babies wouldn't have a good surface to eat off.
That's right.
So everybody,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. You can go ahead. Ladies first.
Thank you, Mrs. Trice. I'm glad to see so many people from Pleasant View that I had an opportunity to work with. It's good seeing all of you. I was going to ask, the model that you have established for your school, is this something that would work for all the schools in the district with regard to the strategies that you're using?
I think we all have the one model, the district model, and everybody has different approaches to get there. I always even tell my staff, there's no Trice way. I think I don't go a day where the staff don't call me extra. Everything is just extra. It is what it is because it's about the kids. So I think that with us following the district plan, like I always say, I might not go that way and I might go the long way to get there or the short way, but everybody has their way of getting to the results.
It sounds like a plan that's working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Principal Trice, for a great presentation. Thank you to your staff. But the one thing that stood out in your presentation was the statement you made about in the past, some of the students got letters from the state on their performance and everything, and this particular year, they didn't get any. So that's a huge, huge improvement and a huge milestone. What would you say just contributed to that part of it? Was it the numbers with the, I mean, how did you manage to go from 20 students, and I'm just throwing out numbers, to no students? Because that's huge.
You were close. It was 27.
Okay.
I think last year we put a real big emphasis on the reading. And one thing that we know that's important is the reading and the writing go together. Because if the students cannot write it, they have a hard time reading it. And the more that they write it, the more they'll read it. So we really, it was just small groups. Every time I walked in the classroom, everybody was doing small groups. We did I think a couple of weeks ago where I took all of the kids and we read a book. We had ordered 320 of the same book. And when the fifth graders came, oh, this is babyish. But by the end of it, the third graders were teaching them something. And then we did a challenge last year. We put the third graders up against everybody. And we were probably one T-shirt away of saying Pleasant View third grade versus everybody else in the building. And it really pushed the other kids. Like, the third graders aren't going to be better than us. Right. So I think just putting that challenge out there, and then the parents were amazing last year. The parents were all over the reading. Everything that we sent home with the reading, and we had meetings where we told them the students need to be able to read because the math is a reading program too. And if they can't read the reading program, they won't be successful with the math. And I think the parents really took that to heart. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Okay, great job. Yeah, I kind of knew the numbers, but I wanted. Thank you.
Ms. Trice, I'm very proud to hear how you implement everything at that little pretty school. I say that because when I moved in East Point, I used to think that was the prettiest little school. But after hearing and being involved a little bit within that, it's not just what's outside, it's what's on inside. And as an educator, the things that you were saying, the teamwork, working with the parents, I don't go down Topher during the daytime at all, because there's so many kids and so many cars. And as an educator in schools, you don't see that all the time. So I give you all your accolades and your students and your teachers for the collaborations that you're doing to make such a big point over there. And I'm very proud of all of you over there.
Yep. Thank you.
I guess I had, I'll be honest, I knew we were going to be talking about the scores, so I had a whole list of questions, okay?
It's fine.
But here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to read you the questions, and I'm not going to look for answers, okay? Because really, within the presentation, you guys covered so much material that you probably covered or touched upon most all of the questions. But I just wanted to make sure people understand that board members, we ask questions about these things, and that's what our responsibility is, okay? Our responsibility is not to go in and choose the curriculum or to analyze the curriculum. That falls on you folks. That falls on our lead administrator and all the leadership in our buildings, curriculum directors, assistant superintendents, everybody. That falls on you guys to do that, not the board. We're here to ask questions and understand, okay? So here's the questions that I had, just so you know. How do we analyze the internal data to identify areas to work on? I think you kind of covered that, touched upon it anyways. How do we identify curriculum to use in order to improve those areas? I think you touched on that. How do we evaluate and select appropriate curriculum? I know there's a process, you talked about piloting and how we go through and we pilot things. How do we test out the curriculum before full implementation? Once again, with some of the piloting and things. How do we evaluate the curriculum as to whether or not it's been successful? Well, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? For the most part. And the other one is, and I'm sure the answer to this is yes, and I don't think you did touch upon it, is this a continuous, never-ending process? And I think the answer to that is yes, okay? Now, we'd be remiss, with all due respect to you, and you do a fabulous job. We can't forget about the high school as well, too, because their scores were phenomenal as well, okay? And to me, I don't look at it as any one person. To me, it's the collective team that has done this. From our lead administrator all the way down to, let's not forget about the students and the students that put the effort in to improve and to get better and to show up based upon the encouragement you give them and to actually show up for class on a regular basis. It's everybody, okay? And I've seen a lot of people out there thinking that leaders in our community are just kind of sitting on their hands and not addressing the situation. I think this has proven that they are clearly addressing the situation. Also, I've heard comments out in the community as well, too, about how the district is in decline. I don't know, but to me, if the Michigan Department of Education says you're crushing it, I don't really consider crushing and decline as being in the same sentence at all. So when you're crushing it, and I think everybody in this district, from our lead administrator down to the students, they need to celebrate this. But I want to remind you, We've all been getting into the Lions, right? I see some people out there with their shirts on. And we've all seen the locker room talks after, right? When they have their individual successes as they go along, you know? And you're smiling too. I'm sure you're probably a Lions fan as well too.
No, they're trying to get me to drink the Kool-Aid. I have.
Oh!
It's some good Kool-Aid.
But anyways, we can all agree that the coach at the end in the locker rooms quite often says, this is just one. This is just one. So we've crossed one thing that we wanted to cross, and we've got one win under our belt. We need to start stacking up more wins. And you want to know what? With the team we have in place, from the top to the bottom, I have no doubt that they're just going to keep stacking them. One right after the next. Okay? That's all I really have to say about it. You don't have to answer any of my questions because, geez, oh, Pete, I'm just blown away. I am blown away because I knew the scores were going to get better. We got internal data on a regular basis when you guys gave your presentations and stuff. We saw this stuff was improving. There's no doubt we have internal data that shows that. But now we have the external, where people are coming in and actually looking at us and saying, are you guys getting done what you're supposed to be getting done? And they're saying a resounding yes. If I'm not mistaken, what was the word? Crushing it? Crushing. Like multiple times? And we have multiple witnesses, right, that heard them say this. It wasn't just like one person heard them. Okay. That's it. It was still your report. We asked our questions.
Thank you so much, Principal Trice, and thank you to all the staff at
Thank you all.
Pleasant View.
Thank you all. And especially to the little one out there. I love seeing.
And I just follow up about third grade retention, so that you are all aware that the third grade retention law was repealed, and that came into effect in February 2024. So that is no longer a requirement that children are retained in the state of Michigan if they are not proficient by the end of third grade reading. So thank you so much to everybody, and that concludes the superintendent's report this evening.
Oh, geez, I can't even see 7:32. It says, okay, hearing of public. We'll open up the hearing of the public at 7:32. Does anyone wish to be heard? Does anyone? Yes, ma'am. I need you to state your name for the record, and you can get 3 minutes, okay?
Good evening. My name is Janae Parham. I am a parent of Pleasant View Elementary. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Principal Trice. Thank you, Ms. Shimmers, my son's teacher. Ms. Trice says she's a numbers person. I am not. I am a children's person. I care about the children. This is my first board meeting, and I am glad to be here. The first thing I heard about was a lot of numbers. I didn't hear so much about the children. What about the children? When do we really acknowledge them in all of their hard work, their parents, their support system? We care about the numbers of attendance. We care about the numbers of the test scores. Where is this coming from? Who does this? Who do we contribute all this to? I don't want to say I'm a struggling mother. I'm challenged here. And to get my children to school every day is a challenge. I have found great support in this school system to do so, so I appreciate you all for that. I do think that the children should be acknowledged and rewarded better beyond the sweets. What more do we give them to let them know we are really proud of them? That their hard work is not unnoticed. And instead of pushing for great attendance during testing time, let's teach them to be present before the testing comes, before count day. Let's get them in a habit of that before time, so when the time comes, it would be no problem. They'd be glad to show up. This data and this information was based on 2 schools. Only one principal is present, and I'm sure she cannot speak for the high school, Principal Yarch. So I would have liked to heard from him as well. And more parent involvement. What are we doing to try to engage more parents in the learning? Like I said, I'm being challenged right now. However, I'm pushing through. And I'm going to make sure my students are available and ready and giving their best. And one other thing to consider with this testing, my daughter really beat herself up when she saw her scores. How do we soften the blow? I do not want her to feel like a failure just because of the test scores. And she's doing well in class. I mean, she really had a meltdown. And I, being mom, you know, I got to be mama, teacher, everybody for her. I had to lift her. And I had to, you know, really tell her, don't let these test scores define you. This is not who you are. This is not you as a student. And so I am glad about this program or whatever is coming where the parents are going to be tested. We need to know what our babies are going through, what they are experiencing truly, because we are not in their shoes and school is, learning is not the way it used to be. And we don't have many educators. We got a lot of teachers. Thank you.
I thank you.
What about the children?
We don't normally respond to the hearing, but if you stick around, I'll be more than happy to talk to you, okay? Anyone else wish to be heard? Anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing at 7:37. Next, discussion action, human resources. Is there a motion for support of the non-instructional new hires?
I make a motion that we support the non-instructional new hires.
I'll second that.
Please call the vote.
Mr. Williams, yes. Mrs. Grunberg?
Yes.
Mr. Grunberg?
Yes.
Dr. Early?
Yes.
Mrs. Rayford?
No, because I didn't have sufficient information to make a decision.
And Mrs. Richards?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Dr. Alspaugh, would you care to introduce any of the new hires that are in the room, please? And thank you for the Board of Education.
So thank you, Board. I wanted to introduce our new principal. Principal Hunt is here, and he will be leading Forest Park. Cameron Hunt has had leadership roles as a Dean of Students and Academic Coordinator at Lakeshore Public Schools, where he focused on improving and achieving, fostering positive behavior, and supporting staff development. His favorite area to work in is the alternative settings, serving families and children who have the highest needs. What stood out about Cameron was his ability to build relationships and insights, and we are very happy to welcome him aboard. So welcome, Cameron.
Go ahead, stand up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alspaugh, and welcome, Cameron.
Okay, next, 8B, Board of Education. Basically, what this is several of the board members sitting up here. One of them absent, so he's not here, but he was at the conference. Wanted to give the board members a chance to report out on the conference that we went to not too long ago. I'd like to turn it over, I'll go last, if you don't mind. Mr. Williams, you want to share first?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the MASB and their staff for doing a great job as well. As usual at these conferences, it's like a big family reunion when we go up there. But I want to point out a person, a young lady that we know also well. She did a great job. She was teaching a course on mental health, and she crushed it. I mean, that's all I can say. Great job, Dr. Early. Mental health first aid. It was a great course. I actually attended, and it was well planned out, well structured, and I actually learned something. So great job. And the the whole conference itself was just a treat, because you not only learn what it is that we do as a district, but you get to, I guess, size your district up against other districts in the state. And when you look at it, you be like, oh, wow, that's what y'all going through. I'm glad we not going through that in our district. But it is, I mean, we bounce ideas off of each other. We have just a great camaraderie, and we're looking forward to building relationships and more of those type of deals in the future. So, great job. Thank you.
I just want to say about the conference. In the conference, one of the presenters was Dr. Adolph Brown, right? Adolph Brown. And let me tell you, if you haven't seen him or looked him up, I had all the information here the last meeting. I gave out everything that I brought. He's got podcasts. I mean, just listen to the man. I bought all his books already. This guy was phenomenal. This is one of his T-shirts. And on the back, it says, "That's why." He's got a ton of them. We're all wearing them. We've been wearing them since we came back to the different meetings, if nobody's noticed. Because it's all about the kids and their story. And it was just fantastic. He changed a lot for me just in that hour and a half that I saw him. Really made me think about a lot of things with children, adults. So if you get a chance, look him up. Dr. Adolph Brown. He's fantastic.
I have to say, I want to ditto a couple of things. It is like a family when we go to these conferences, because from the time you get on the board and you go to the classes, you're kind of going with a cohort of such, right? And so as you stay on the board and you go to the different classes, you learn board etiquette, you learn about the back part of being a board member, how to present yourself, and all of those kind of things. So it is like a family when you go up there, because you see people that did not understand how to do anything in this realm, and now they are successful board members 2, 3, whatever years later, and it is wonderful to see that. And going to these conferences gives us an opportunity to talk about what's going on in our districts to other people, and for them to bounce off ideas on us and us on them. And so it helps us become better board members. Now, everybody don't see that. Everybody don't believe that. Everybody may not even care about that. But having the opportunity to get the education we need is important. We as board members can't do it without this education. We cannot. And so I appreciate the fact that we even have a budget to allow the education portion for the conferences like the MASB offer us. I did, and I was afforded the opportunity to put in a proposal to talk about mental health first aid in our schools, and I did, I think, a pretty good job. I had over 50 people there. Mr. Roscoe assisted me in that class, and we put out scenarios on different things that our children will go through, that our parents will go through, and we discussed how our teachers are teaching the same things from years ago, but then you got this piled on them and this piled on them and this thing piled on them. And so they're not just teachers, they're mothers, they're counselors, they're social workers, they're people coming trying to make sure their kids is eating, like all the things. And so going to these conferences, it helps us understand what they're going through. It helps us be better board members. I would hope that my 2 new board members, y'all jump right in and go to those classes, because that helps you understand what we go through. And it's not easy being a board member, but when you get the education, it's easy to understand how to be a board member and how to be together as one. We're never gonna agree on everything. We don't have the same opinions. It's gonna be this side sometimes against this side, whatever. But at the end of the day, when we say motion passed, then we all have to abide by it. And that's the things that we learn at those conferences. And so I just want to say thank you to the public for allowing us to go to them. to be a part of them, to put in our budget for us to be there. Because we didn't have to do it. It didn't. I just appreciate it.
One band, one sound.
Okay, I guess I go last, but actually, I'm just going to be a little, what? Oh, I'm just going to be a little bit more specific about the two issues that you touched upon. First off, Dr. Early, it was fantastic that Robert Roscoe stepped up because unfortunately, the other presenter couldn't make it. So, once again, one band, one sound. That presenter couldn't. He was fairly well versed in the material, so he jumped right in and gave her some assistance in that. When we were in that class, the thing that was remarkable about it that I really enjoyed was the fact it was very interactive. So what they did is they provided a case study for each table, and the case study, what it does, is describe the student and what they were going through and the various stages that they may go through, and some of the signals that they set out that they actually need some assistance or some help or some guidance. And what it did is it got the groups to interact amongst themselves and start to talk about, well, if a student did this, how would you react? What do you think you should do? So we're starting to think about, recognizing the signals and helping the students as early as possible, which I think is very important. Remarkable job. I've been to a lot of them. So I think I'm a fairly decent judge of it because I've probably been to, 50 to 100 breakout sessions like you did. And yours is right up there at the top with some of the best, okay? And then I need to get into Doc Brown. And Doc Brown, even though there are many speakers and we hear about many various topics while we're there, Doc Brown was the most impactful person to me in my 21 years of being on this board and seeing him speak. And what he spoke about is he spoke about the fact how we start out as very young children, and we have a tendency, as things come up through our life, we stick them into our backpack, and we end up carrying that around with us. And we just keep adding to our backpack as life goes on. And that backpack just gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And we don't ever take the time to try to start taking things out of that backpack and relieve some of the burden that we each have on us. And that was so impactful to me that I can tell you right now, and it's shocking probably quite a few people, but there are behaviors and things that I'm doing now where I am trying to empty out some of my backpack. Because I think it makes me a better human being, and it makes me better able to serve the people that I've been entrusted to serve. And I think we all kind of got that message, and I could not expound upon it now. This is not just Doc Brown, somebody you don't know about. This guy's been on TV. I mean, he's up there. He knows what he's talking about. And if you saw the presentation, it was unbelievable. He came out dressed pretty much like some of the young folks that we would see in our schools. And this wasn't a young man. I was surprised how young he looked for his age, to tell you the truth. But he pulled it off, and when you watched him through the whole thing, he was speaking dressed as a very young individual, very young-looking individual. And then right at the end of his speech, he yanked it all off and was a completely different person. And then you saw the professional Doc Brown and the person he had become. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing. I don't have anything else to add. I'm going to continue to unpack my backpack, and I hope other people follow the suggestion and do the same. Don't be carrying around those heavy burdens any longer than you have to. Reach out to other people, okay? I think that's it then, right? Meeting adjourned, 7:49. And I got to go talk to that.